Well, hello and happy Monday. Not happy for everybody, that's for certain. Certainly not happy for former clerk of court in Colleton County, Becky Hill, as we got big news today that Alex Murdaugh is actually suing her. So I was in the middle of preparing my episode that was my reaction to the reversal of his murder conviction. And while I was in the middle of that, I got a little notice that he had filed a suit against her. It's a little bit crazy. But I've prepared a bunch of videos in this for those of you who don't know much about this case or just need a refresher since it's been a while. And maybe you know absolutely nothing about it. So I tried to set it up in a way that everybody would understand. And going back to some of the history, hey, Christina, be careful. But I think it will probably be a much smaller crowd today because everyone's used to my Wayfarer stuff. So with this being Murdaugh, it may be, hey, Cocksureness, I haven't seen you in ages. Hi, Pam. Hey, Roses. Alrighty, well, hopefully my old Murdaugh crew will find their way back to me. I know I kind of abandoned the story for a while, but it looks like there will be lots and lots to talk about. But here we go. Let me just dive in. A year ago, Dick and Jim promised that they were going to tell us all who the real killer or killers were because supposedly they knew who it was. Instead, they've left their client rotting in prison and spent every second of their work on this case focused on one lady, the lady that you see here, the former clerk of court, Becky Hill. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about this case, we're going to get into why in just a moment, so don't leave us just yet. Let's be clear. Becky Boo, as she was nicknamed during the trial, deserves all of the criticism for getting too high on her own supply and turning this whole case upside down. Reversing this conviction that took so much money, so much work, so much effort. It was successful. It was difficult. It was difficult on the surviving family members of Maggie and Paul. It was difficult on everybody. And so for this to have been turned around it just boggles the mind, and it is infuriating, and it is all her fault. So I don't want to minimize what she did by any stretch of the imagination. I've been furious with her ever since it was first announced at that press conference, that Sunglasses Trio, when they filed it and held the press conference. But there is a lot more to all of this. So here we see them, and this is where I nicknamed them the Sunglasses Trio. They couldn't just file the dadgum document. They had to alert the press, run down to Parker's and get their $19.99 shades, and stand outside the courthouse and spew their vitriol and accusations before anyone got to read and process anything. They put out the earworms that have been playing on repeat ever since. Alex didn't get a fair trial. And just like that, Becky was accused, tried, convicted, and hanged right here in front of the courthouses. And crowds came with pitchforks. Suddenly, all experts on due process and every other civil rights issue and Constitution issue. She became, on that day, a bigger target than Alex, Corey, and Russell all put together have ever been. And that's what made me mad. Yes, it's despicable what she did, but the way that everything turned, like I said, pitchforks and torches, and in a way that people never came after Alex like this, or Corey, or Russell, or the three of them put together. The hatred, the vitriol, the accusations, and sheer nonsense that should have been reserved for the likes of Alex and his co-conspirators transferred directly to Becky before we even got to see any evidence. And it hasn't let up. Why? Is it that much easier, that much funner to hate on a woman than it is these three men who did so much harm to so many victims? And again, don't get it twisted. I am furious with Becky. Absolutely disgusted, aggravated, and like I said, furious for what she did. However, facts matter. And when everyone picked up their pitchforks and torches, the actual facts went straight out the window. And that's exactly what this courthouse stunt was supposed to do, to close everyone's eyes and everyone's ears to the actual facts and just join in the chants of due process. Alex didn't get a fair trial. Let's be angry. The situation calls for it. But torches work two ways. They can go out and light things on fire and burn down the village, or they can shine light so that we can see through the darkness. Let's hold our torches up now so they can shine light on the facts. Let's talk about what happened in this case. Many months after the murder trial was over, after these jurors had long been out in the wild, these goobers rolled up unannounced on the jurors' homes to question their verdict. They did this completely on their own. It is not recorded. It is not well documented. They had their paralegal write and sign affidavits about what these people supposedly said. Those that can't even hold up in court, and it didn't hold up in court. And one of the jurors that they did this for, when interviewed by the state, had completely different answers than what these guys swore that they said. Let's watch them in action.
Immediately in the aftermath of the verdict, we had received information that we needed to look into what happened in the jury room. We started down that road, and we met a zone of silence. No jurors would speak to us. And so we were, what I like to call, we were given the Heisman, right? And then when the clerk of court wrote her book, published her book, that zone of silence collapsed. And jurors were upset about that, the ones we talked with, and they were more than willing to come forward and tell us the things that we had sort of heard through a whisper campaign. But and so as a result of that, we were able to interview some jurors. Now, there were still a number of jurors who maintained that zone of silence, who have not talked to us. We did try to reach out to most all of them that we could get in touch with.
And by the way, we've seen more of Carlton County on dirt roads, in places we're city boys, we didn't believe existed in this state, looking for folks that would talk to us. A lot of doors slammed in our face.
I would slam my door too. So, did you catch? This is one of the things I can't stand about this man. And I tell you what, I'm not looking forward to hearing these voices over and over again now. And the things that they say are always so talking about, oh, we're city boys. You're not boys. But, oh, that little scoff. The dirt roads, like Cockshorna says, down dingy dirt roads in their Mercedes. Yeah, places we didn't even know existed. This man was a senator at the time he said this. He's talking about his constituents. He's insulting where these people live at the same time that he's enlisting their help for his case. No wonder you're not a senator anymore, Dick, because you're a jerk the way you just spoke about these people. And also, this case, you're no longer a senator, are you? So there's that. But there's also this thing about the money, where he was finally asked. They were finally asked. They have done all of this. They ran out of money like halfway through the trial. And since then, they have gone to the Supreme Court. They have filed motion after motion. They have appealed. There have been hearings. There have been so many filings. And now a new trial when we keep hearing that all of Alex's money is long gone. So this has been the question. And listen to the way that they answer it.
Who pays you guys? I mean, this has been going on for several years now. He allegedly has no money. How are you guys being compensated?
I'm going to defer to Jim on this because this is a discussion he and I have all the time.
Yeah. So,
Is it pro bono?
Craig, we got paid to try the first case.
Okay.
And there's no more money left. But when you do this work, you represent a criminal defendant. I mean, it's like you got paid for a job, and the job's not done. So, you know, it's a loss leader right now. We're doing it. We're not getting paid, but we're going to see it through.
And we're looking for avenues to perhaps get some money for, expert, not for us, but for expert witnesses.
Yeah.
I mean, the costs in the first trial were $600,000.
Okay. Did that sound fishy to anyone else but me? What attorney have you ever heard of that offers what I call a BOGO sale? Buy one trial, get an appeal free. Nothing about this makes sense. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Appeals often cost more money. And they're like, well, our job wasn't done, so we're just going to do. And you notice he didn't even say pro bono. Why didn't he say, when he asked him, are you doing it pro bono? Why didn't he say yes? That was odd. And then this little, we're looking for ways to pay, not us, but the experts. When you represent someone, there are a lot of costs here. It's not just their time. They have a whole staff doing all kinds of stuff. They have to travel. Last time they booked this beautiful kind of resort place there near the courthouse, and the trial lasted like 6 weeks. There are a lot of costs more than just these guys' time. So they are losing money and have been since like halfway through the trial. So it's all very, very fishy. And it's also destroying their reputations. It's not like they're coming out winning, and so it's worth it. It's very, very fishy. But a long time ago, I came across an interview with him talking about he worked with Alex's grandpa, the original Buster Murdaugh, years ago. And he told these stories that was kind of like ethically questionable, and he just sat there laughing about it. And it just makes me wonder, does Alex have something on this guy? Like, what is it? What is it that is making him do this, that destroyed his reputation, lost him his seat at the Senate and all of his credibility, and is costing him so much money? And he's willing to do this. And it's them filing this lawsuit. They're not only doing the actual appeal, the retrial, but they're the ones doing the suit against Becky, as if this ex-clerk of court, who doesn't have that job anymore, is going to be able to provide them with some big old settlement. Like, it's crazy. Nothing about this case makes sense. I don't understand. Okay, and now let's talk about the way that they did this, the way that they went to these jurors. Now, this is from the South Carolina rules, and it talks about, this is specifically about communicating with the juror. And if we drop down to C, this is after their service as jurors is over. So the communication, they shall not communicate with the juror after discharge if the communication involves misrepresentation, coercion, duress, or harassment. Did it sound to you like these jurors were very welcoming about them coming? And as we go through, Does it sound a little bit like coercion? I want you to keep this rule in mind as we go through this. There is, oh, I forgot to load. Did I forget to load that video? I've got so many lined up here. Let me remove some of these that I've already played. And I was a little bit late because I had this all set up as a PowerPoint, but it didn't end up working that way. So I had to real quick load all of the videos back up onto here. Where is it now? Oh no. That one's not showing up. I had a recording of him where he went to the door of the person who sent the court an email, and it was aggressive and it was leading, and the woman would answer his question and he would try to twist her words standing right there. So I just imagine that this is probably the way that he dealt with these jurors as well when he spoke to them, because it's his personality. It's everything about the way that he operates. But the good thing is, with this coming to court, all of this is going to show up in discovery. These poor jurors are going to get subpoenaed again. They're going to have to come back again. They're going to have to be deposed. But they will get to tell their side of how they were approached at home, how the conversations went, whether or not he led, whether or not he twisted their words. Because like I said, one of the affidavits that his paralegal wrote, which that's not even admissible. His paralegal sat there and wrote her own sworn affidavit about what this person said. That's absolute hearsay. And then it turned out when this person was questioned, that person did not say what they had in this sworn affidavit. So at the time of the evidentiary hearing, they were asked just some very basic questions. But now, thanks to this lawsuit, we're going to get to hear everything about how these people approached them and what they said. And I hope they're all sitting down writing copious notes about those things so that they remember when they do get their subpoenas and depositions for all of this. But you can't just go willy-nilly. Now, here's another thing. Here is a state that is in their same federal or their appellate circuit. So it doesn't really apply to this case, but it just gives you an idea of how other courts view this kind of conduct. Because the first question I had is, how were these guys allowed to go drive up on these people's houses and go reach out to these guys? How is that okay? In most places, it's not okay. Here's how it goes in other places, like I said, within their own circuit. This is talking about West Virginia, which is part of the Fourth Circuit. Judges from 2 circuits reported that they will consider granting permission from post-trial interviews in special circumstances. They impose a good cause requirement and application to the court before permission for post-trial communications with jurors will be granted. This should be standard everywhere. You should not be allowed to drive up to these people's homes and then insult them later about the conditions that they live. You should have to apply to the court and get permission. And you should not be able to do it ex parte or one side. You should have to have either opposing party there or some neutral person. Like this is so wrong. They've tainted the jury's memories now themselves by doing this. Let's see, where did I leave off? Only under court supervision after good cause has been shown. So court supervision, someone there monitoring it, making sure nothing untoward was happening. There was no leading of these witnesses. There was no twisting of their words. These people were just at their home, unexpected. He said they knocked on doors on Sundays. and this Dick Harpootlian knocks on your door. You're completely taken off guard. This should not have happened. To protect jurors from harassment and undue pressure to change or cast doubt on their verdict. And that is what these guys did. Jurors are not compelled to answer questions nor attempt to explain or justify their verdict without a showing of good cause. So, this all happened before he filed anything, before anybody had any idea this was even happening. So no good cause had been shown yet. In another circuit, where permission for post-trial interviews must be sought on a motion to the court, and interviews are permitted only in extraordinary circumstances. And then it says post-trial interviews are expressly forbidden in 5 judicial circuits. So some don't even allow it. We went through what some of them do. It talked about 2 circuits where you have these strict requirements. Then there are 5. It is just outright forbidden. That's 7 of 11 circuits. So unfortunately, they're in a circuit that allows it. And you're going to see how the rules of this circuit affect a lot of things in the episode that I was writing when I got the news of this lawsuit, which is my reaction to the reversal in the first place. Because even that would not have happened in many other circuits. It just happened to be in the one circuit that follows Rimmer the most. Others have updated on the not 1, but 2 new U.S. Supreme Courts since Rimmer that have narrowed its control. And they completely ignore those, even though the state addressed them and stuck with Rimmer. But anyway, that's for the next episode. So, but with good reason, these other places have much stricter rules over this kind of conduct. And like I said, I feel like this kind of behavior is what actually did the tainting. They're trying to say these jurors were tainted, but what they did had so much more, I feel, power to taint these people's memories than anything that they're accusing Becky Hill of doing. But before we watch these videos, let's take a step back to what led to all of this in the first place. The lady in the middle, who was nicknamed the Egg Juror, which we'll talk about that, how she got that nickname, was out running her mouth while she was a juror on the case. Now, I say that she was doing that, not allegedly or accused of, because the people who were the ones who sent an email to the court for this situation, those people were interviewed by SLED. They signed sworn affidavits saying that she did this. So in the court's eyes, she did this. But word got back to the court and she ends up being removed. And she's angry about it. She's bitter about it. She's embarrassed about it. Probably very embarrassed of the nickname. And how she got it is when the judge was speaking to her and asked her, well, he was letting her know that she was being removed. Well, once you're removed, you don't get to go back into the jury room. And so he asked, do you have any belongings left in there? And she said, my eggs. And everybody laughed because why did she have her eggs in there? Well, one of the jurors had farm fresh eggs and he would bring them in to share them. And so she wanted those because it was the middle of COVID. Eggs were really expensive and it was farm fresh eggs. Who wouldn't want them? So she asked for the eggs. And at that time, we had no idea, of course, as you're not supposed to know, we had no idea what her name was, who she was. We didn't even know her, her jury number at the time. So she just got nicknamed. Yes, it was a dozen eggs. That's right. She just got nicknamed the Egg Juror. And so she's been called Egg Lady, Egg Juror, Egg for all of this time. And I'm sure it's embarrassing, but he instructed you every day, don't talk about this case. You weren't supposed to tell people you were on this jury, and you weren't supposed to express your opinions about what you thought about his guilt to other people. And so she has been angry ever since. She has joined forces with a felon who keeps coming up. Do I think Becky's innocent? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't want you guys to think that for a second, that because of what I'm saying about, I do not believe she tainted the jury. And we'll get to all of that, but I do not think that she's innocent for 1 second. I don't know what she said or didn't say, but we're going to get to why I have the opinion that I have as we go through this. Yes, Egghead would fit very well because, and well, it's mostly going to be in my next episode. So to clear things up quickly before I get to that next episode, think about the world we live in now. We have access to if you followed the Wayfarer case, for example, it never went to trial, but we know every single piece of evidence that was unsealed in that case. How do we know that? We know it from the internet. We know it because people like me covered it thoroughly. Every little piece of evidence we found, and other people who had more time went through and found every little bit of thing that they could find and made TikToks about it and reels about it and all kinds of things about it. So we got to see all of that evidence. And that was one of the concerns that attorneys have nowadays when they are gathering a jury. And the more widely known a case is, the more chance that you come across that people will have heard something about that case. You get to big celebrity cases like, sorry guys, hold on. Like the Diddy case, where they worry, can you get a jury that hasn't been tainted? Russell Laffitte and Corey Fleming, they were worried when they were coming to trial because there'd been so much about Alex Murdaugh and his co-conspirators that's what they were saying. They're saying we can't get a fair trial because everybody here has heard of this case. So what do you do in those situations? Do you just say, oh, there's no possibility for an untainted, unbiased jury for this case? What do? You instruct the jury to follow the evidence and only the evidence. And I'm not so brand new that I would ever in my mind think that a juror wouldn't get curious about the case that they're sitting on and would break the rules. And I'm sure it happens every day in courts across this country because people suck. Quite frankly, people suck. They don't follow rules. Think about how many rules people break every day, whether it be traffic things, all kinds of things. So do they peek into the case that they're sitting on and read stuff? Probably. No doubt. I have no doubt that happens all day, every day in courts across this country. But they are given instructions, and those instructions are to, and they probably go home and talk to their spouse. I don't know that I would be able to not do that. They're not supposed to do that. They might talk to friends. We don't know what jurors get up to, but they're supposed to come here and speak and listen only to the evidence and make their verdict only on that evidence. And that is what is supposed to protect the verdict from any influence at all. And I remember I interviewed one of the jurors, the one whose book I narrated, and she said people would, when they would see her out and about and knew she was a juror, because people would come to this trial. Locals did. Word got around fast. It's a small town. They knew who the jurors were. and would want to talk to them about it. And she would have to say, hey, I can't talk about that. These are the realities of being jurors. So what you have to do is put on your big girl pants or your big boy pants and say, in spite of everything I know or have heard or have broken the rules and looked at myself, I have to look just at the evidence of this case and give my verdict. And every day we trust jurors across the country to have done that. And these jurors were individually questioned in an evidentiary hearing and asked, did that affect your verdict? They said no. They all said no except this woman right here. And here's the thing. Dick Harpootlian, on that day, the sunglasses day, he made people think that just having heard these few words from a clerk of court destroy everything. And they pressed so hard for the Rimmer standard. But there have been 2 U.S. Supreme Court cases since Rimmer was decided that have narrowed that scope and have said to do just what Justice Toll did. Bring these people in, ask them. Don't retry the whole thing all over again. Do what was done in this case and take that into consideration. That is how it's supposed to be handled. So everybody that's flying off the handle and saying that he didn't get a fair trial because Becky said a few words, they are wrong because of these other 2 U.S. Supreme Court cases. So that's my stand. Yes, Becky's wrong. And if she said these things, it's awful. It's terrible. But if those things did not affect these jurors' verdict, then it really doesn't matter. It should not bring forth this retrial. So that's my stance on that. And I will go through these other U.S. Supreme Court cases and how other places handle it, everywhere but the Fourth Circuit. Literally every other state, how they handle this. This is very strange to the rest of the country that they've done this. But so that's my answer to your question for now. But I it seems like you might have jumped ship because some people are just they won't let go of this. They heard this, he didn't get a fair trial, and they run with it and they don't wait to listen to anything else. So I'm beseeching you guys today to please hear the whole thing. Please hear the whole thing first. And don't hear one little sentence from, of all people, Dick Harpootlian, and think that that's correct. Or other people who really wanted a new trial because their viewership went down at the end of this trial and they want another one so it goes back up and they get to be on documentaries and stuff again. Don't listen to those people. There's an agenda. Find someone who will show you all the facts and listen to them. I'll get more views covering a retrial, but I would happily sacrifice that for this not to have happened. Yeah, don't listen to Dick. And don't listen to, for example, the one guy I know that really got people saying this, he's the one who really got the pitchforks and torches going, Will Folks. Because guess what he did? He's one of the ones, apparently, that one of the things that Becky was arrested for and charged with was supplying these pieces of evidence to certain people, these sealed pieces of evidence, and he was one. But he was the first one out there crucifying Becky. And one of the ones getting people to run around and repeat, due process, due process. Alex didn't get a fair trial because he's one of the main ones who lost viewership when this trial ended. And he would love to see a second one. You have to think about where you get your information and did you get the full story. So that's where I stand on this. Now let's talk about the credibility of the people. And this is right here. So we've got the egg juror in the middle. For some reason, she goes out and gets an attorney. It's the man on the left, Joe McCulloch. You're going to get to know a little bit about Joe McCulloch today. Why would she need an attorney? She claims it's because, yeah, you know who I'm talking about, cocksureness. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The man who's being sued, 2 different cases right now. And he's one of the ones who's the reason that Becky got convicted. But anyway, Joe McCulloch. So she says she was being harassed by the press, so she hired an attorney. I mean, okay, if you say so, but we'll see. He happens to be very good buddies with Dick Harpootlian. We see them here on the left. This is just right after this whole Sunglasses Trio press conference happened. But this is them together at CrimeCon in Orlando. And you see him also on the right at the top. Look where he's sitting, surrounded by Alex's family. He sat every day of this trial right there in the camera's angle to make sure he was on camera every single day. Nothing wrong with that. He was asked, "Why are you here?" He said he was writing a screenplay. Okay. Odd, but okay. What's so odd about that? Look at the picture at the bottom right. These are all of the kids who were in the boat crash that started this whole thing. The boy on the far right is Paul Murdaugh, who Alex murdered. He was driving the boat. He was intoxicated. I'll be doing a lot about the boat crash conspiracy case coming right up as well. That's the hearing I attended on Friday. But he accused the boy to the far left, named Connor Cook. He said, "Oh, no, it wasn't me driving. It was Connor driving." And they tried to get Connor to go along with it. So Connor goes out. He needs an attorney. Alex says, "Oh, well, hey, here, I'm going to help all of you guys. We just all need to be..." So he's doing all these evil machinations behind the scene, blaming another guy's kid, a guy he went to school with, knew his whole life. And he's like, not my son, your son is going to take the blame for this. But he doesn't let them know that's what he's doing. Tells the parents, tells the kids, just be quiet. I'll help you. I'll help you get through all this. No worries. I gotcha. And so Connor doesn't say anything. He's like, "Let me get you an attorney, Connor." And who does he get other than Corey Fleming, co-conspirator, the guy who helped Alex steal all the money, the guy who's rotting in prison as well right now. And then lo and behold, Connor finds out, that's Alex's best friend since school days. His co-conspirator, and that's who he set me up with. So he dumps that attorney, and who does he get? Joe McCulloch. This guy, besties with Dick. Connor couldn't catch a break, could he? Not only that, he is Connor's attorney when all of this is happening. He's representing the egg juror and the other woman in the picture. At the same time, he's representing Connor Cook in the boat crash. This is a conflict of interest. How did this happen? How did this happen? Hey, hey, Bruce, tell him, Cassidy, don't take any guff from those yahoos. Exactly. No way she could afford Joe attorney. Exactly. Well, now this is rumor. This is not confirmed, but it's been rumored to me by several people who live there that she now works for Joe. So Cocksureness says, no way she could afford Joe attorney. He sat through the whole trial, didn't he? So much corruption. Yes, he did. And if you look here, you see Connor Cook versus Gregory Parker and company here, because Connor took out his own lawsuit, respectfully submitted by who? Joe McCulloch. Not ended until, as we see here, October 14th of 2024. for. But this is all stuff that's happening back in 2023. What's going on? And these are the three people that are responsible for what is happening here today. How this was reversed. Okay, these are the ones that were not loading correctly. So I've got to look them up and play them for you. So let's meet these people, okay? So Myra, we find out now after it's all said and done, we find out we meet her because she goes and teams up with this felon. It is the same felon that I've told you about that tried to shut down my YouTube channel, but got very close to succeeding it. It's the same felon that I told you about, the hearing that I attended Friday, is stalking Mandy Matney and is involved in how they got some evidence against her. It's just like with the Wayfair, they accessed somebody's iCloud and got into private messages. And he's behind that. He sent that to Parker's attorneys, got this all subpoenaed. It's all a big, ugly mess of wiretapping and all kinds of criminal charges, so much like the Wayfair case. So anyway, that same felon who just keeps popping up, he writes these AI slop books about claiming that Alex is innocent. So she teams up with him to write her book. And that's how we find out her name and everything. Well, now let's meet her.
I didn't know everything that I know now, but I didn't know everything that I know now, but my initial, I don't know, afterthought after I found out a few things, I talked to Mr. McCullough, and I just wanted people to leave me alone at the time. I was still discovering things and learning things, but I told him from day one what I knew, and that I thought it was wrong. I didn't know the extent of what had went on, but I learned.
All right, so I have a question for you, Myra. How are you learning new things and hearing things? What are you talking about? Because all the accusations came from you to start with, and later the lady next to you, who, by the way, is not just a fellow juror, but is her tenant. This woman rents from Myra. So just the talk about a tangled web we weave. This story is so tangled, all of the overlaps. So this juror, this is her landlady. All right? So this juror on the right that you saw in the picture, I hate that the screen just went black. So she actually was there to give her verdict. So she comes out and then all this mess happens. Okay. So she is the only juror who says that her verdict was affected by Becky. So we're gonna work on this a little bit. We're gonna get to see a little bit more about her and whether or not we can take this woman's word for it. And that is, let me see, his lawyers. Let me remove. Okay.
Did you decide you wanted to come forward, reveal your identity, and talk about your experience on Alec Murdaugh's murder trial?
Well, whenever his lawyers had come to me and explained some things, it didn't all click until they had, talked to me and to let me know, what Becky did wasn't right. How she came into the juror room and was talking, interacting with all of us.
All
Why
right.
did you decide you wanted to come forward, reveal your identity, and talk about your...
Did you guys? Yes, Mandy is her tenant. Mandy's the egg juror's tenant. The angry egg juror. Okay. Did you hear the reasons she gave for why she came forward? Because
your experience on Alec Murdaugh's murder trial?
Well, whenever his lawyers had come to me and explained some things. It didn't all click until.
So, what does she say? We know Dick was coming up on these people's houses. She describes it as his lawyers came to me and explained to me that what Becky did was wrong. So this woman, exactly, Frankie's world, exactly. She didn't go to anybody and say, hey, this was wrong. They came to her and explained to her that what Becky did was wrong. Is that not insane? Hey, Gelth, welcome. What is going on here? But that's not all. Let's hear a little bit more from her. Sorry, guys, I gotta line this all up. I had it all prepped so beautifully in my little PowerPoint, but it didn't it just didn't play right.
Would you have ever come forward if the lawyers hadn't come to find you and tell you that Becky had done something wrong?
Probably not.
Would you have done this?
So would you have ever?
If his lawyers had not come to you and told you that what Becky did was wrong? And she says, no, probably not. Okay, now are you starting to understand why I'm not gung-ho that Alex didn't get a fair trial? Why I'm not gung-ho that Becky Hill, regardless of what she did wrong, and I'm not saying she didn't do wrong, she definitely did wrong, that it did not rob him of a fair trial. This is the jury tampering. Exactly. Who said it, Pam? This is the actual jury tampering. And I'm sorry to say this, but we have to notice this woman's character, I guess, for lack of a better word. We have to keep this kind of stuff in mind. Sorry, guys. Because it's important. Okay. All right. Next one. We're going to see her. Now, this was on Fox News. This was called Fall of the House of Murdaugh. And that aired. It was a little more edited and better. Now, she does a live interview on Court TV. Let's see if she does any better there.
Live this morning on the program. Mandy, good morning to you. Thank you for coming on Court TV with us.
Good morning.
Mandy, tell me, as you sit here today, I'm sure people have to be asking you, or people at home watching this may be wondering, why come forward now and speak out now about this?
I guess with Myra's new book coming out, I just was going to be there with her.
Did you guys hear that? That's the first answer that comes to her head when she's asked why. Why are you doing this? Because Myra's book's coming out and I wanted to be there with her. Is this a juror who says, oh, something went wrong in court, I need to go report this because this wasn't right? Or is this someone who has been coerced, has been tainted, has been told? She says, they told me, they explained things to me and told me what Becky did was wrong. And now her landlady has a book, and so she's coming to support her. All right, let's hear the rest of it.
And just some of the things that happened.
Okay, and taking these in turn, Myra, you're referring to Myra Crosby, who was known as the Egg Lady for a long time. She was dismissed from the deliberating panel because of speaking about the case to 3 people. She's writing a book, you said.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the other thing you said, in addition to that, to support her and be there with her in the interview, you said some other things. What other things, Mandy?
Um, other things like, what do you mean?
She is joining us live this morning.
I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. It's not funny, but she said other things, and when she was asked what other things, she thought it was the other woman. She goes, other things. What do you mean? So interesting you guys said paid off, because her ex-husband came to my channel once. Now, I had no way to verify this. No way at all. This is rumor, just like the rumor that Myra now works for Joe. I have not verified that. I don't even know how to verify that. But some locals have told me that, and also that, and the ex-husband told me directly, which you can't believe exes when they talk about their ex, because not many of them remain friendly, that she got a brand new car after this. So is it true? I don't know, but it's interesting. This whole thing, this something very, very strange about what's happening here. Right, gotta catch up. All right, so let me load the next video.
Just asking you what you mean. You said, I asked you why speak out now, and you said, well, partly because Myra's booked to be there with her, and then because of some other things. I just wanted to know what those other things are.
I guess because it's kind of hard to say. I guess because they're trying to throw his case. Well, not throw his case, but they're trying to get him another appeal. And
So now her next reason for doing it is because they're trying to get him another appeal. So there's nothing in here that says, like if I had been a juror and the clerk of court had done something that upset me, that I felt was wrong, that I learned was wrong, that would be the first words out of my mouth. Like this is all very bizarre. So Vibe Flux, let me get this question here. So well, she's being sued now for it. So we're gonna get to find all of everything. It will all be subpoenaed. It will, I mean, her phone records will probably be looked into. It's been a while, so I don't know how far back they can go, but it's all going to come out now. So we're going to get to find out exactly everything that went on behind the scenes. So far, like when she was charged, she wasn't charged with jury tampering. Like the things that she was indicted for and then convicted of, that didn't happen. But now with this lawsuit, all the evidence will come. So like there were questions, because during the evidentiary hearing, not everything got asked, but we wanted to know. Like we heard about her giving somebody a ride. Did that happen? We didn't get to know because that wasn't the point of that hearing. But all that stuff will come out now, and then we'll get to know the full extent of it, of what she did wrong. And there was somebody else. Was it Bruce? South Carolina should add some espresso to the water in addition to the fluoride. So one thing I will say in her defense is that there is a delay. She's listening, and so there is a delay in what she's hearing and gets to speak. Her answers are slow, but there is a part of that is the delay there, but not all of it. Definitely not all of it.
And they had an opportunity for us to come out there, and I just came out just to tell my side.
Okay. So here's the thing that bothers me about this so much. Okay. I feel like this woman was coerced, first of all. I don't know how anyone could watch this or listen to the words that she said in all the different interviews that she's done and think otherwise. I don't know how anybody could hear this and think otherwise. She is the entire reason that Alex gets a whole nother trial. I would need more than this. And justice determined that this woman was not credible. Not every witness that takes a stand and says stuff, people put their hand on the Bible and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and sit down and lie their guts off every day in courts around the world. So it is the judge's job, or, well, in a hearing, it was just a judge. There wasn't a jury watching. If there's a jury, it's the jury's job to determine whether or not the person or persons speaking are credible. You go into court knowing that somebody is going to lie on the stand. It's a fact of life. So you have to look at someone's credibility and what she has said in each and every interview and in her sworn affidavit has not been credible. And here's the thing that bothers me so very much. Innocent men have spent their entire lifetimes in prison trying to get an appeal. They've been put to death. There's been cases where their DNA didn't match. It was discovered years later, where other men's DNA has matched. And even after that, appellate courts won't hear their case. But Alex Murdaugh gets a whole new trial because of this woman and the stuff she just said. What world am I living in? I'm in the middle of listening to a John Grisham book that's about innocent men who have spent their lifetimes, decades in prison, could not be heard in appellate courts all around the world in cases exactly like I said. Their DNA didn't match. Other men's DNAs matched. They still sat in there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Couldn't get an appellate court to overturn their conviction. And Alex got it based on this? What is even happening? I don't understand it. How many men are sitting in a South Carolina prison right now who are innocent and their appeals will never be heard? But Alex, who's in prison for the rest of his life anyway, he gets this privilege. Not only does he have an ex-senator and these high-paying, high-level attorneys representing him for absolute free, but he gets rushed ahead to the appellate courts and his entire case reversed based on this garbage you just heard. Am I the only one that's just asking what in the world about this? Am I crazy to question this? How is this happening? I bet if we were to look, we would find a long list of innocent men sitting there waiting to be heard. I interviewed Stephanie Tinsley, Mark Tinsley's wife. She did a podcast about an innocent man in Tennessee who has sat, like, I think it was something like 26 years in prison. And when you hear the evidence of the case, she went out there and investigated herself. She investigated and found stuff. That man was, his conviction was just overturned. And I don't believe it would have happened without her. The Tennessee Innocence Project was on it too, but she actually went out and investigated. She hired an investigator and she went around to these places, scary places in Memphis, and found out the truth. She interviewed people. She went to the prison, interviewed the man. Like, this is crazy to me. And it wouldn't have happened without her and the Innocence Project. But it's why I can't let this case go. Because every time you think you've seen the end of the privilege, there's more. there's more. Even after he was convicted, there are still people operating somehow in his favor to supply things to him that nobody else gets. I don't know. I can't stand it. I really can't stand it. Okay, let's go on.
And Mandy, you were the only juror on the panel who said at the hearing conducted by Justice Toll that you were improperly influenced by Becky Hill. I want to take a listen together to some of what you said. And this is where you discussed the point where you said Becky Hill told you to, quote unquote, watch his actions.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
If yes, what did Ms. Hill say?
To watch his actions.
To watch his actions? What else?
To watch him closely.
The justice then asked you, Mandy, how did those statements influence your verdict? Would you answer that question here for us, please?
That she made it seem like he was, already guilty.
And so when you were deliberating, walk us through that, please. Are you saying that the statements affected your deliberations, or were you unable to separate them from, the facts and the evidence? And, is the oath that you take, says you must just focus on what's presented in the courtroom. I guess kind of explain to us how those statements might have influenced your ultimate decision.
Okay, so these are the statements that she said in her sworn affidavit, and these are the statements that she said now. This is what she says Becky said. Watch him closely, and watch his body language. I can't remember the exact wording of that. That was not okay. Okay, like I said, I want to keep repeating myself because I don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that I support Becky Hill or that I don't think Becky did anything wrong. But she didn't say Alex is guilty. She didn't say Alex did it. She didn't say go in there and give a guilty verdict. So, nothing remotely close to that. She said, watch him closely. This is something that Creighton Waters said in his opening statements. It's not okay that Becky said that. But it is that, and would you translate that into how she translated it? And would that make your brain leave your body and cause you to be unable to make your own verdict? And the other jurors have said it did not, and that it's offensive. I've spoken to them. I interviewed Amy, and she's one who wrote a book. I narrated her book. She is so offended. They all are offended by the people who say that they were influenced by Becky, because they're like, you're acting like we're children who don't know better, who don't have our own minds, who can't make up our own minds. We found this man guilty because we sat there for 6 weeks and watched the trial, and we gave our honest to goodness verdict. We're not stupid. And that's what people are saying when they say that these couple of remarks that not even all of them heard are the reason that they sentenced a man or came back with a guilty verdict for a man and said a man killed his family. And I would be offended too. How stupid do people think they are? They didn't come to that conclusion easily. That was a difficult thing to do. And for people to pretend that these two remarks that not even all of them heard because they were in two separate rooms is the reason for their verdict. And that's the whole point of the two Supreme Court cases that came after Rimmer, the ones that the Supreme Court, South Carolina Supreme Court should have relied upon in making their decision. All right, what is next here? All right, let me get the last video lined up.
Well, at first I voted undecided, and then
Okay, let's talk about this for a second. So I know I talked in between the last clip and this clip because she was asking her about how it affected her verdict. Okay, now let's get the how this happened, the timeline right. So she claims Becky said those things and her brain left her body, and now all of a sudden Alex is guilty, right? But she actually goes into deliberate because these statements were supposedly made before deliberations. They were supposed to have been made before Alex testified. So this is a couple of days before. And yet, when she actually goes in to deliberate, what does she say she put down? Undecided. Now she wants to convince us that those comments that Becky Hill made her say guilty. Even though when she walked into the deliberating room, she wrote down undecided. She didn't write down guilty, did she? So how influenced was she? I say she wasn't. Now let's find out what actually influenced her. And this is what she put on her sworn affidavit. And this is why Justice Toll said you're not credible, because in your sworn affidavit, you said this, and now you're sitting in court saying that. Did you mean what was on your sworn affidavit? And she told her yes. And then Joe McCullough follows her out and goes across the street and types up a new sworn affidavit and tries to come back and slip it into the court, because that's what after he gets a little signal from Dick Harpootlian. But this is what happened. It's insane. So all of her statements and her sworn affidavit say what she's about to say next.
like I said in the other interview, that some of the other jurors and some just thinking about, like, everybody was ready to go, everybody was ready to get it over with, and
Okay, so remember what she said. She walked. So Becky made her comments days before Alex was going to testify. And if you remember, Alex testified for more than one day. All right, and then they get to the day where they're going to start deliberating, and she says, undecided. How influenced was she? Now let's look at, so now she's saying the rest of the jurors were like, they were ready to go.
so then that's whenever I had voted guilty.
So that's when I voted guilty. The other jurors were ready to go. And so I voted guilty. It was peer pressure from the other jurors, but it is a long-held rule in every state in this country, not some states, all states. You do not get to question a juror about anything that happened in deliberation that came from other jurors. They could call each other names. They could break a chair over another juror's head. None of that has anything to do with it. The only thing that matters is outside influence. And when she walked in that deliberation room, she was undecided, and in her own words said, the other jurors wanted to go, and so I changed my verdict. And then she comes out, and her landlady obviously voices stuff to her. And then Alex's attorneys come and explain things to her and tell her that what Becky did was wrong. And now here we are. You've heard all of this. This is not my opinion. You've heard all this directly from this woman's mouth. Now, instead of going through all of this, the Supreme Court just listened to, and I should clarify and always say, when I say Supreme Court, when I'm talking about this case, I'm talking about the South Carolina Supreme Court, not the US Supreme Court. So they just took Dick Harpootlian's word for it and said, oh, Becky Hill tainted the jury. And now we've got to retry it. And now, you know what we've got? There is a group of people, most of them local, who are promoting this idea that Alex is innocent, that Alex didn't do it, that there's other people out there involved. And now we have even Blanca, who says she thinks that there were some cleaners. She says she doesn't think they were involved in the murder, but they came and helped Alex clean things up. Rumors like that. I mean, she has no proof that happened. Not to diss Blanca. Blanca was a huge part of his conviction, and I feel really sorry for Blanca for everything that she went through, and I have a lot of respect for her. But here's the thing: once someone says something like that without proof, it spreads, and then you get people talking. Oh, Blanca says there's other people involved. It creates a mess. Now we really have issues. We've had all these people running around demonizing Becky Hill. And now you're going to go in and you think you're going to get a jury that's going to convict him again like last time? I think there is a humongous chance now that he's going to get away with it. That they're going to go through all of the trouble and all of the expense to retry this man. And he's not, all it takes is one person. One person. And you've got a mistrial. I think there's a huge chance that after all of this, he's going to walk away. Right now, the state's trying to decide whether or not to appeal this higher. They have 90 days to do so, I believe. Either 30 or 90 days. I can't remember. I feel like it's 90. They have all this time to do so. But are they gonna? I think they should. I honestly think they should. Because I wouldn't trust a jury at this point for them to go through all of the expense and all of the time and all of the trouble. And with this threat of these people who, for some reason, I saw the most disgusting thing. Someone had posted a picture of Alex and talked about him getting a reversal. And somebody goes, oh, it's a shame because he's so cute. I wanted to puke. I really wanted to puke. How gross. You have to keep in mind that not everybody can make heads or tails of things like they should. You have to keep in mind that these people have been able to do things that your average person can't get done. There were rumors that Egg was a plant in the first place, and then she got weeded out, and now people are saying maybe Becky Hill was a plant. I mean, you honestly don't know. There's been some crazy stuff happen down there. But I don't know. I feel like they need to pursue this higher before they just jump to saying we're going to retry it. I think there's just so much risk now after all of these things that have happened in this case. All right, let's get back to, gotta get past all these. These were where the videos were embedded. But these three people, and now you've been introduced to them a little bit. Joe McCulloch, who was, while he's doing all of this, was representing someone in the boat crash case that was suing Alex Murdaugh. So what does that tell you about this man? Oh, and also, this is from locals that I trust completely what they have to say, that attended the trial, and they said this man was there hitting on a bunch of young women during the court. Okay, then we have Myra, the angry egg juror, who for some reason goes and hires this attorney. Did he come to her? How did this happen? I don't know. And then we have this woman whose interviews you just saw. I don't think a single one of these three people are credible. Not a single one of these three people, in my opinion, are credible. But here we are. They were able to manage securing a new trial for Alex. So, and I'm going to talk a lot more about that in my next episode. But so we're going to just run through and read this dramatic writing. This was written by Phil Barber. And hey, Lori. But the initial pleadings are always dramatic, even from my favorite attorneys. But my favorite attorneys, they write with wit and with spice, and it's enjoyable to read. But this guy, let me tell you, from my Wayfarer group, this guy is like a very, very toned down Michael Gottlieb. There's nothing fun about reading his writings. It's all just yuck, just gag inducing. And my Wayfarer group, you know that for Queen Ellen and her delightful writings, I would highlight hers. Her extra spicy points in pink, my favorite color. And when it came to Kevin Fritz, I would highlight in green for Salsa Verde because it was so spicy. But this guy gets baby poop brown color because he's just yuck. So that's my little pettiness for this. I just wanted to let you know why why it's brown when you're used to seeing yellows and greens and pinks and purples and stuff. But anyway, I got to get my little kicks. If I've got to read his gag-inducing words, I've got to take a little bit of revenge somehow to get myself through it. So it's that's what it comes down to. So you guys know my personality by now. I'm petty like that. Okay. So, and I also have to penalize him for not using the word wanton. That is my favorite word on a dramatic pleading. If you've got a chance to write a dramatic pleading and you don't use the word wanton, that is a complete waste of everyone's time. It is a wasted opportunity. It is not here. So he loses points for not using the word wanton. Okay. But also, here's what he says. The deliberate and egregious deprivation of plaintiff's constitutional right to a fair trial before an impartial jury, guaranteed by the 6th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution. No right touches more the heart of fairness in trial. That right was stolen from Alex Murdaugh by Becky Hill. I had some background sad violin music to play with this, but because I wasn't able to do my PowerPoint in full, it's not playing. So sorry about that. But he maintained his innocence then. He maintains his innocence now. Losing my pages here. Sorry, guys. And I'm biting my tongue with this. I'm saving my comments for the one that I'm doing hopefully in the next couple of days. It's my response to the Supreme Court's decision, the reversal, and that's when we're bringing in the other cases and stuff. So I'm not going to comment too much on this. I'm just going to read it. But I will say this. I feel the exact same as Creighton Waters. When he was interviewed, he said, we disagree with this decision, but we understand and appreciate the court. I can't remember his exact words, but just that he does disagree. So just to know that I disagree with all of this, and I'll give my opinion on that in the next episode. So they say that Becky had secretly and deliberately inserted herself into the jury's deliberative process for personal financial gain. Miss Hill placed her fingers on the scales of justice. The ones in green are directly taken from the South Carolina Supreme Court's decision. That's why they're in green. But the brown is his drama that I don't like. That she abused the power and authority of her elected office. She made repeated improper extrajudicial communication to jurors in which she urged them not to be fooled, confused, thrown off, or convinced by Murdaugh and his defense. As far as I know, it was one day. I don't know what this repeated business is now. Became a character witness on behalf of the state, encouraging the jurors to question Murdaugh's credibility and essentially implored the jurors to find him guilty, the ultimate issue in the case. That is a big word. That is a big stretch. Implored by saying to watch his behavior? I don't know, guys. Miss Hill's motive was her self-serving desire for personal profit. She wanted to write a book about the most high-profile trial in South Carolina history so she could buy a lake house. She believed a guilty verdict would be the best way to sell books. To me, that is utter nonsense. I want you to think about the biggest case in history, in recent history, that sold the most books ever, had the most books written and sold the most, was the OJ case, where he was found not guilty. You don't need a guilty verdict to sell books. I would say it's the opposite. The more upset people are, the more upset about a verdict, the more books they're going to buy. Attracted, oh, and then the words of Chief Justice Toll, attracted by the siren call of celebrity, allowed her desire for the public attention of the moment to overcome her duty to her oath of office. That is absolutely true. She did. She did. And I'm disgusted by it. So her improper communications to the jury were deliberate acts repeated across multiple occasions, directed at jurors she was sworn to protect from outside influence. And the South Carolina Supreme Court described it as breathtaking, disgraceful, and unprecedented in South Carolina. The Supreme Court of South Carolina unanimously reversed plaintiff's murder convictions and remanded for new trial, holding that Miss Hill's jury tampering violated Mr. Murdaugh's constitutional right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. Mr. Murdaugh brings this action to hold Miss Hill accountable for her wrongful conduct under color of state law and to recover compensatory and punitive damages as provided by law. Honestly, I think this is only part one of this law case or this lawsuit because Becky doesn't have funds like what Alex wants. When you file in federal court, it either has to be multi-jurisdictional, which this is not. This all happened in state court. This belongs in state court. Or it's over $75,000. And then there's a few other things too. But when I saw this, I'm like, this all happened in South Carolina. Why are you doing this in federal court? Amounts over $75,000. So he knows he can't get this amount of money from Becky. So I think there are bigger fish out there that he's looking to add to this lawsuit later. Bigger fish with deeper pockets, like, I don't know, the actual county or the actual county courthouse. But she is not really an employee per se. So I don't know if they can do that. She's someone who's voted in by the public. So I haven't had time to look into what that would entail to try to add someone else to this. But it's just incredible that he thinks that he's going to get this kind of money from the woman whose high-paying job was lost for what she did, and rightly so. But if he's looking to sue the courthouse, that's just crazy. The courthouse that he was convicted in, where his grandfather's portrait, his great-grandfather, his grandfather, and his father's portraits still hang in the hallways or in the courtrooms. But this is all his family knows how to do. That's how they got so much money in the first place. This, yes, I will, Jordan. I will. I just happened to look at, yes, definitely will be doing that. I got a lot to catch up on. I'm going to put your comments on the stage. So this, if you don't know, and if you look at my playlist version of my channel, it organizes the different topics that I speak about. And look under Murdaugh Mafia, you will find the history of this family because it is sordid as can be. Yes, their portraits are still up and they really need to be taken down. It says a lot that they're still up, but they are. But anyway, the guy on the top left is the great grandfather of Alex. He's the one who started it all. He is Randolph the First, Randolph Sr., and he was basically dying. And he, when you hear the eyewitness reports of what happened, late one night, he pulled onto the train tracks. They saw him. They tried to stop. It was impossible to stop. They hit him. He was dying, though. I uncovered the health issues that he had. It's been spoken about in books as well. I believe I have his autopsy report. But yeah, and he pulls onto these tracks, and the engineer and the man that was up in the train with him, they both witnessed it. They saw him look at them, smile, and wave as they frantically tried to stop the train, and of course could not. And it killed him. And then his son, Buster, who was the worst, that's the second guy there, his portrait is the one that's in the courthouse where had to be taken out of the room for Alex's trial, but it was restored. I have video of being in that courtroom after the trial, and it was put back up in place. But and this is my picture actually that's here of it. But anyway, he sued the train company and got tons of money, and that's where they started. And they have a running joke in the family that that he sued them, and that he's been suing them ever since, because they continue to sue the railroad. They could sue that railroad for things that happened in other states just because it sold tickets in South Carolina, and that got stopped some years ago, but they just kept on suing them and never stopped, and built their empire on that, the great grandfather's death. So then the next one, the top right, is Alex's father, Randolph III. Now he had Randolph IV, who works in the firm, still works in the firm to this day. But from all traces of any investigation that's been done, he must be more like his mother. He was not found to be involved in any of Alex's schemes, nor did he seem to have any awareness of it. And he kind of stopped communicating with Alex when things started to become a little more, when they started to realize what was going on. So I think of them all, he may be the more decent one. And so Alex, it's funny that Alex is not the fourth. He's Richard Alexander. He ended up being treated more like the heir, the one to follow in the footsteps. It's really kind of strange, where the fourth, Randolph the Fourth, wasn't really seen that way. But then Alex, of course, this picture was originally Paul in the series, because Paul was the part of the story, but I've replaced him with Buster here because this goes on to Buster, because Buster now, so it's if you can't make millions by being an attorney, you sue and you make it. So Buster, who got kicked out of law school for cheating and couldn't become a lawyer, now what he's just done is sued a bunch of the documentaries for mentioning that it had been the rumor of the place, which that's true. People were rumoring that he had killed someone by the name of Stephen Smith, which you'll hear about more. If you're new to the story, you will hear more about him as we go through. I just met Stephen's mother. She is absolutely darling. She gives the best hugs and is just the sweetest woman. But he was accused by the locals, and that is a fact, of being the person who killed him. Now, it's not a fact that he killed him. It most likely was not him. It is still unsolved, but it is a fact that it was the rumor for the longest time. And a policeman tracked it as best he could. And person after person said, yes, I heard Buster did it, and followed it all the way back. And ultimately it led to nowhere. But he was suing all of the Netflix and Blackfin and Warner Brothers about talking about how he was accused of this murder. So that settled. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to have another catch-up episode on that. I've got a lot of files from that to go through. I imagine we won't know any of the details of the settlement. I'm sure it's all under a strict NDA, but I will find what I can and get that to you today. So that's what this family does. If you can't earn the money, then just sue somebody, whether it's your fault or not. Okay, so I'm going to skip the part about the parties and the jurisdiction. That's in every one of these complaints. You've probably seen all these in parts now. And now we get to the factual allegations, and these are the facts of the case. Sorry, I've got to rush. I've got to pick my husband up soon. So I'm going to go over to factual allegations. Alex was indicted for the murder. The trial ran 6 weeks. He was sentenced. Let me see. I don't think a lot of this. As the defense began its case, Miss Hill told jurors, y'all are going to hear things that will throw you off. Don't let this distract you or mislead you. I have to tell you that none of the jurors, not even the one you heard from today, have said that as far as I can recollect, but I'm going to go through everything and make sure, and we're going to talk about that more later. Miss Hill and Juror 826, the new jury foreperson, on multiple occasions went to another room to have private conversations lasting 5 or 10 minutes. Again, this didn't get to be investigated. This will get to be investigated now. 826 never said anything about the content of these conversations. Miss Hill instructed jurors they could not ask about those conversations. Miss Hill told jurors not to be fooled, to watch him closely, look at his actions, look at his movements. We just heard that from Juror Z. Let's see. So this person, and this was I don't remember hearing this before, but then again, this was all in 2023. This was happening 3 years ago. So I don't remember everything perfectly, of course, but the four-person juror 826 told the jury that Mr. Murdaugh was crying on cue. There's also claims that she criticized the former four-person for handing Murdaugh a box of tissues when he was crying, because that is what defense wants us to do. Then there's this whole nonsense about Facebook post. I'm going to have to brush up on that again before I come back and talk about that. But there was plenty of reason that the judge did not take this seriously. And here's the most important part about the Facebook thing. The egg juror was not removed because of this. This was brought to the judge. Both sides of counsel came. They met. They all discussed what to do about it. She was not removed for this. This has nothing to do with her being removed. Nothing. But they can't stop bringing it up. Okay. So I'm skipping over all of the Facebook. This is all the Facebook, the transcript from that in-court hearing. I've got that whole transcript. Okay, then they talk about stuff from her actual book, because she wrote this book. And they say that she had another private conversation with the four-person there. Again, one thing I want you to remember is that just like you saw in Blake's complaint, we saw that a lot of the accusations that Blake made, they were not true. Once the evidence came in, they were definitely not true. We saw actual video proof in that case that it wasn't true. So this is like that. This is what they are claiming happened. None of this is verified. None of this has been determined to be true. From here, discovery will commence, and we'll get to see if it's true. These people will be deposed. They will testify, and we'll follow it through and see what happens. But at this point, nothing on here can be taken as truth. All of this needs to be taken with a truckload of salt. So, then in her book, they say she vaguely hints at communicating. And so they go through that. They say that she never saw Facebook posts, that she made it up. Here's these claims that she was asking Egg Juror. This is all Egg Juror's accusations that she claims that Becky asked her if she thought that Alex was guilty or not. We don't know if that's true. We've got Becky, who is determined not to be credible, and we've got Myra, the Egg Juror, who doesn't seem credible either. So we'll probably never know what really happened there without having other witnesses to that. But we do know that Myra was accused of being out in the wild telling her tenants that she didn't think Alex was guilty. And they signed sworn affidavits to that fact and also were interviewed by SLED and talked about that. Okay. So we have this is all conversations. She claims that Becky said that if the foreperson would just go in and ask for a raise of hands, it would be over and done with. And everybody needs to be on the same page. Here's the other part about all of this. Sorry. The only thing that matters in reviewing this is the verdict. Egg Juror was not a part even for 1 minute of these deliberations. She had nothing to do with the verdict. So anything that happened with Becky Hill and Egg Juror has nothing to do with the actual verdict. Now it has everything to do with this case, because this is all about getting to the bottom of what Becky Hill did. And so that's why this is important, because it is exactly about her conduct. Okay. Then they say, this one doesn't say who said it, but when the jury deliberations began, Miss Hill told them this shouldn't take long, and that if they deliberated past 11, they would be taken directly to a hotel, even though none were prepared to stay overnight. That's standard procedure. When you're going to be sequestered, that's what happens. She had to inform them, and I believe it came out that it was actually the bailiff who told them that. But I have to refresh. I have to dig into all of that stuff. Okay. Let's see. They say she told the jurors after the trial that they would be famous and predicted that the media would request interviews with them. She handed out reporters' business cards to jurors during the trial. Let's see. They claim that one of the jurors took it to heart and wore a suit coat for the first time on the night of the verdict. He denies that. He denies that it's because of Becky. He talked about that before. I can't remember if it was in an interview, but I'll get all this stuff to you guys. So it talks about her book deal, her book being released. She had planned to write before the trial began. She was talking to coworkers about it. And that it says that her book, however, caused some jurors to come forward to describe her efforts to obtain her desired guilty verdict through jury tampering during trial. That is a wild misstatement. But also, let me talk about that, because this one I have a very clear memory of. There was an alternate juror, and I know people who saw this person with their own eyes because they attended the trial. She would sit there and put stuff over her head when a juror is supposed to be watching and listening to everything. This woman would put stuff over her head and put tissues in her ears. How she remained an alternate, I don't know, but she did. And Becky talked about it. Becky didn't identify the person, but she talked about it in her book, and she didn't like it. She was embarrassed by it. And she's the one who made these allegations. Now, keep in mind, she had nothing to do with the deliberation. She was an alternate that did not come into the jury room, did not deliberate, had nothing to do with the verdict. So it will play a role in this case, but we have to keep these things separate. So remember that. There are things that matter to this lawsuit because it is directly against Becky for her behavior. Then there are things that are mentioned here that have nothing to do with Alex and his verdict. So this is one of those things. Okay. So then it talks about how he filed a motion for a new trial. He had an appeal already in the works, and he asked for that to be set aside because instead of an appeal, he wanted a motion for a new trial. And that's what the evidentiary hearing came out of, to see whether or not he would get a new trial. Well, it was exercised, it was done, and Justice Toll said no. And so that ended, the abatement ended, and he went back to the appeal. And now through this appeal, it was reversed. So that's where we are in the stream of time. This is just the history of all the dates of how that came about. So that was the evidentiary hearing. And now he gives the information about the evidentiary hearing. I'm not going to spend time on that because I am going to go through those details because they really, really matter. He makes all of these claims about what the jurors said and what they swore to, but we're going to go through the affidavits that he has and what they all said and what they said in this evidentiary hearing, because you cannot trust a one-sided explanation of what happened. We're gonna look at all the evidence to see. And then here, Jersey, this was her reaction when she was being asked, and this is where she says how she was influenced. You'll get to see the whole thing of why the Supreme Court, ex-Supreme Court Chief Justice, did not find her credible. A woman with decades of experience. As I said, she was the former Chief Supreme Court Justice, the first Supreme Court Justice woman in South Carolina. She knows how to size people up real quick. Okay. And then they repeat. They have to repeat it. Since it was only said once, they have to keep repeating it like it happened so many times, just to get it stuck in your head, to play through your head over and over again, like I said, like an earworm. Then Becky testified she denied engaging in jury tampering. She was also not to be found credible by Justice Toll. I didn't find her credible either. She's the kind of person, like, I don't know, I've told you guys before, I kind of catch on to personalities really, really quick. She's not someone I would want to spend time with in real life. But anyway, She admits to plagiarism. So look at how this is what they're doing. They're just like, this has nothing to do with the case, but they throw that in there just because it makes her look bad. It's that bad character evidence, like what we went through with the Wayfarer case. This will never make it to, it shouldn't make, I won't say it will never make it because we were talking about here, but it shouldn't make it because it's completely irrelevant. It's just something put in there to make her look bad. Examination revealed that Miss Hill's denial during direct examination was not truthful and that she, in fact, did want a guilty verdict. Then it talks about the Barnwell County Clerk of Court, Rhonda McElveen. I've expressed my opinions about her. I will show you what I mean. She is guilty of some of the same things that Becky was arrested for and convicted of. She is the head of the Clerk of Court Association in her area and kind of showed Becky the ropes because Becky was pretty new at the time this case took place. And she basically used this evidentiary hearing to promote her campaign for re-election. In my opinion, I will let you form your own opinion when you watch it. But based on that, I didn't put much stock in what she had to say. Also, she was present during all of the stuff that she sat here and told in the courtroom. And I want to say, you're the head of this Clerk of Court Association. If you saw something that was so bad, why didn't you report Becky at the time? Why didn't you walk over to that judge and say, look, Becky's doing this. Becky said that. Becky's going to write a book. If it was so bad, why didn't you do your job, lady, and get something done about it at the time? And maybe, just maybe, if you had done that, we wouldn't be here where we are right now. But you wanted to come here and get your face on camera and get your re-election out there, and you ended up looking like a fool because you should have done something about it if it was so bad at the time. And you sat there stealing money too, just like Becky. So says the report, the investigation. Anyway, sorry guys. Got off on a tangent. Cassidy side quest. So I don't really put much stock in what she says. She says that Becky said to her, don't be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys. This is just co-workers speaking to each other. It has no bearing on this. I sat there and talked to people that I knew, said, he's sitting there lying. I screamed it at my TV. I told everybody I knew because I was obsessed with talking about this case. This is what people do. They talk to people about their feelings on things. There's nothing wrong with her saying that to Rhonda, a fellow clerk of court, who came over and said, oh, Becky, you need some help. Let me come help you. Because she wanted a little excitement. She wanted in on the biggest case of the state. Okay, the final witness, Juror 741. This is the alternate. This is the one that puts stuff over her head and stuff in her ears and is really personally mad at Becky for writing about her in her book. The defense is about to do their side, and they're going to say things that will try to confuse you, but don't let them confuse you or convince you or throw you off. Again, had nothing to do with the verdicts because she didn't deliberate. She didn't decide. This is the trial court's ruling. Was that did Clerk of Court Hill make comments to any juror which expressed her opinion what the verdict would be? Ms. Hill denies doing so, and so the question becomes, was her denial credible? I find that the Clerk of Court is not completely credible as a witness. Ms. Hill was attracted by the siren call of celebrity. She wanted to write a book about the trial and expressed that as early as November 2022, long before the trial began. She denies that this is so, but I find that she stated to the Clerk of Court, Rhonda McElveen, and others her desire for a guilty verdict because it would sell books. She made comments about Murdaugh's demeanor as he testified, and she made some of those comments before he testified to at least one of one and maybe more jurors. The clerk of court allowed public attention of the moment to overcome her duty. The trial court nevertheless denied the motion for a new trial, reasoning that there is no presumption of prejudice from tampering with jurors during a trial about the matter pending before the jury, and Mr. Murdaugh failed to prove that Ms. Hill's comments changed the jury's verdict, which is all that mattered, but apparently not to the South Carolina Supreme Court. Then she was reported to the State Ethics Commission. They fully investigated her. Then she was arrested last year in May, almost exactly a year before all of this decision came out. For perjury, obstruction of justice, and misconduct in office, notably not for jury tampering. She pleaded guilty to those charges. Her perjury conviction concerned her testimony at the evidentiary hearing, in which she testified she did not give news media access to sealed trial exhibits, including crime scene photographs of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh's slain bodies. Forensic evidence, however, conclusively proved she escorted news media to secured areas of the courthouse after hours, where she allowed them to photograph sealed exhibits. That's, as I said, involved one of the men who has done the most to vilify Becky Hill. He was one of the ones that was involved in this and took this stuff. But even by selling access to grisly photographs of their slain bodies. On May 13th, the Supreme Court vacated the order denying the motion for a new trial, and they ruled that both the state and Murdaugh's defense skillfully presented their cases to the jury, but their efforts were in vain because Colleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill placed her fingers on the scales of justice, thereby denying Murdaugh his right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. And we have no choice but to reverse the denial of Murdaugh's motion for a new trial due to Hill's improper external influences on the jury. And you know what's sickening, guys? This was leaked, this decision, and the fact that it was unanimous. So somebody from the South Carolina Supreme Court leaked like 10 days before it was officially announced, leaked the decision. This decision was not filed till May 13th. So who's in that Supreme Court running their mouth? No wonder they don't think Myra did such a big deal. But how awful for them to demonize Becky so much for running her mouth when they're doing the same thing. How in the world are they leaking their verdict before it's filed? Like 10 days. It was already on the Nancy Grace show. I was outraged. I saw it and I'm like, what in the world? And so before I watched it, I went down through comments and people are like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Then I go look at the news. There's nothing. Nothing was announced. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was just a leak, and it took it over 10 days to officially be leaked. So, what? Yeah, Becky is not serving time. She took a plea deal, and she's on probation. I did an episode about that, about her pleading guilty. And if you go to the playlist version of the channel, then it should be classed. Hopefully I've kept up with that and got everything where it belongs. But you can see the plea deal and her appearing and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, let's see, where was I? Okay, they go on and repeat. I told you, they keep repeating it to make it seem like she said it so many times. Just to keep it playing in your head. It's a tool to be used. It's an effective tool. But keep that in mind when you look at it. It's not, each of these mentions is not a different time. It's the same time, just being repeated. It further ruled that Hill clearly advised the jurors to find Murdaugh on the evidence he presented not credible, and essentially urged them to render a guilty verdict. They ruled that Ms. Hill engaged in this wrongful conduct under color of state law, such that her position as the Colleton County Clerk of Court, an officer of the court who managed the trial and was the primary caretaker of the jury, amplified the impact Hill's comments had on the jury. They further ruled that the breathtaking and disgraceful effort of Hill to undermine the jury process is unprecedented in South Carolina, and accordingly, we hold Murdaugh's right to a fair trial by an impartial jury was violated by Ms. Hill's intentional misconduct. Let's see. After the revelation of his financial crimes, the court placed him in receivership. They froze all of his money. He had funded his murder trial defense with a $600,000 withdrawal from his 401k retirement funds. This withdrawal to fund his legal defense was authorized by the court overseeing the receivership. These retirement funds were employer contributions to his retirement account untainted by any criminal activity and were his sole remaining asset. Mr. Murdaugh spent the entire $600,000 on his trial defense. The South Carolina Supreme Court has ruled that Ms. Hill's actions, motivated by her own desire to profit from the trial, caused these funds to be lost. Ruling that Mr. Murdaugh's trial defense was in vain because Colleton County Clerk of Court Rebecca Hill placed her fingers on the scales of justice, thereby denying Murdaugh his right to a fair trial by an impartial jury. So here is the one and only cause of action. It is jury tampering. And normally this is a criminal situation, but it is one of those that has apparently been made civil. And here we get to the monetary damages. They want $600,000. The idea that they think they can get $600,000 from this woman is laughable, but we will see how they go about doing that. But like I said, the good thing is now that this is actually in court. It's not just the empty accusations that they've been hurling to the public all this time. That discovery works both ways. That means that this will be able to be investigated. People will be able to be deposed. It will be, since it's in federal court, it will be open to the public. It may very well be like the Wayfair case. It may be sealed initially, but eventually, when it comes either to dispositive motions or the trial itself, it will be revealed. So it will be a matter of time, but we will get to the bottom of this. I don't know how quick this case will progress in court or whether or not it will be able to move forward or will not survive a dispositive motion or not. That all remains to be seen. But as far as the retrial of his murder case, we've got two answers about that. The state has said that it will be this calendar year, and the defense has said they want it to be next year. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But we've got a lot of stuff to look at that I will be going through. I've got to get my brain back in this mode again. I've got to get all of this Wayfair stuff. I have stacks of Wayfair stuff here on my big old, I don't have a desk. I have a handmade work table because I need so much more space for it because I print everything. I've got to get all this Wayfair stuff filed and put away and drag all of this Murdaugh stuff back out so I can get you to all of the details because I got them all. I have Alex's bank information for I don't know how many years. I've got all of his financial victims and how much money he stole from them. I have Buster's lawsuit. I have so much stuff to share with you guys, and I'm so excited to retell this tale leading up to the case. And I will keep my eye on this federal case. Like I said before, I said all the time with the Wayfair case, one side comes out, and I usually like to wait till the other side replies and then talk about it because then you have a more balanced thing to go on. In this case, we just have the first one, but I wanted to get it out because it's big news. And I know you all of you who follow the case wanted to hear it right away. So this is where Cassidy has it all. All right, guys, I've got to go. Like I said, I'm picking my husband up in. Well, I should have left already, to be fair. But anyway, let me know in comments what questions you have about this case, because I know some of you are returning that have followed this all along, and some of you are those from Wayfair that have just followed me over. So let me know, what are your big questions that you have about this case, so that I can help you catch up or help you get interested in it. So yeah, I was gonna do that here and now in your comments now, but like I said, I don't have time to do that. Hey Jane, did you tell everyone about why you started your channel for this case? This case was the beginning of it all, of all this kind of reporting. It wasn't the murder. I watched the murder trial, and I heard Creighton say that when he brought up the financial victims, I heard him like speed through the list of their names, and he kind of asked him some of the questions about these people, and I was like, wait, this is what I want to know. He stole millions of dollars from who now? And I said, we know Alex's name, we know everything about Alex, but we don't know who these victims were other than Maggie and Paul. I wanted to honor these victims and what they lost and what happened to them. And so my first episode was the first victim. I went through and categorized all the victims. I looked for everything I could find about them and trying to find how much he stole from them and what their stories were. And so I started from the beginning. I love chronological things. And so my very first episode was about the Plyler sisters. A couple of sisters who were in a bad accident where their mother was killed. And they were pretty much orphaned. Their father did not want to take them in. They were passed around. People used them for thinking they could get some of their money from the settlement, but it was put in a trust that Alex was helping himself to. And when they started to get of age, one before the other, they started to have to put that money back. It was him and the banker Russell Lafitte and his co-conspirator Corey Fleming. Russell and Corey are both in prison as well. And they started having to put that money back. Well, none of them had that money to put back. So Alex had to start, well, didn't have to, but he chose to start stealing from other, even sadder clients to put that money back. And the biggest story was Arthur Badger, and I think that was the second victim. It was, I'll get into all that because I want to retell those stories, because when I first started, I had this little Surface tablet with no external mic, and I was just nervous as heck, just trying to tell these stories out. I hadn't done anything like that, any public speaking in a few years. I was way out of practice. I didn't know that much about anything yet, and it was like really, really badly done. But I was so full of indignation, I could not shut my mouth. I had to tell the stories. But yeah, I'll retell the Arthur Badger story for sure. But yeah, that's where it all came from. And then from there, he had several other cases in federal court and state court, and his accomplices did as well. So we just started to learn from all of these cases more and more details about everything. And I've been obsessed with it ever since. But so come be obsessed with me. It's a big story. There are so many documentaries. There's a Hulu series about it. Yes, J-Tor. The Hulu series is a great catch me up. No, it's not completely factual, but it really will help you catch up really, really fast. There's a Netflix documentary that's really, really good. There's an HBO documentary. There's a lot of documentaries. It doesn't. It just go on whatever streaming services you use and Google it, and there's probably one there because there have been so many. But I better go. Yeah, Omar and I were recapping the series. Now we really got to do it. Sorry, we still have the last two to do. And I may go in and do one just exclusively myself that's shorter and more concise. We'll see how my time plays out with all of this. But anyway, I've got to go. Thank you so much, Christina and Jane. You are amazing. And I meant to tell you, Christina, I'd like for you to put up your link to the what is it? Buy me coffee. It's not buy me coffee. It's one of those types though. If anybody would be interested in just showing appreciation for Christina is always a good thing, and something I want to try to do every month because she works so hard, not just here but like everybody I follow. She's their mod too. So anyway, she's not taking any new application or not taking any new jobs though. So she's got so much to do. But yeah, Christina, truly post that in live chats, post it in comments on my posts, you know, with my blessing to do that. But just yeah, and Jane, if you have one as well and would like to do that, you are absolutely welcome to do that. Please, even if you just let me know if you have something like that, just so I can show my gratitude to you guys for all that you do. But anyway, have a great night, and I will see you soon.